I think we're live. Is there audio? Are we good? Can people hear us? Intermediate. I'm guessing people can hear us, right? We're a little behind here, so we got a thumbs up on here. So Justin and I have been having a debate today about how we wanted to set up the camera angles, because last live we had like a discussion format that we really liked. And we're debating if we should look at each other on this camera angle or look at you guys.
What's hard is that I'm not used to being this close to him. And so it's okay, but
that's technically a lie, you guys. If you watch Why Humans Have Big Butts, Justin got uncomfortably close to me. So.
I still have nightmares.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good video. So, okay, so I think we're going to do what we did last time as far as go through some of the common questions we have. We do want to say, everybody, that this is we appreciate everybody's support and feedback like always. It's impossible for us to answer everybody's questions, so we've kind of compiled some of the most common questions, and a lot of questions that may not be the exact same, but they had common themes. So we've compiled some of those, and if we have some extra time, we're going to give you guys some insight and kind of behind the scenes, at least behind the scenes of our brain, right?
Yeah.
Of how we create the YouTube videos and even follow-up questions that people might have. So,
yep.
I guess you're going to start, Justin, and should we read the questions out loud that we
I'll read it out loud. So, first question is, I don't know if this is quite a question, but I can't stop thinking about where you get all your stock footage. Is it all from one website? Is it just out there on the internet? Is it a company that supplies footage for educational purposes specifically? So, we get all of it from Envato primarily. Yeah. It's like Envato. We use 3 different ones. So we use Envato, we use Adobe, and then we'll also use Canva. And I can just speak because I've done a lot of the editing for our videos, and I do whatever I can also oftentimes to make it as accurate as possible, but sometimes I have fun. It's just can I make this ridiculous? There was one, I can't remember the video, where it's literally people just on a computer typing like this.
Yeah.
And then there's a computer screen that has just the most ridiculous science thing on there, science. I did that on purpose. I was that is so silly.
Yeah.
I had to put it in there. So it's little things like that, but most of the stock footage is it's normal. It's just from Envato elements. And so it's these are licensed things. They have commercial licenses. They have all these different types of licensures that just allow you to use it, but it's just normal stock footage.
Yeah, I don't know where Carl gets his stuff. We have an editor named Carl who gets his stuff. He might get it from Envato too, but that's one of the biggest challenges with creating videos is the science photos, and sometimes you get some good ones on Adobe Stock or Envato.
Yeah.
And even Canva's had stuff that I've downloaded.
Canva's surprisingly good. You turned me on to Canva. I didn't even know it was funny. I didn't know the whole elements part.
Yeah.
On Canva even existed.
Yeah.
Beyond shapes. I was I can get an arrow. Turns out they have this huge library of stock content.
Yeah. We did have some feedback on some of our comments last time where somebody was almost didn't like how much we used.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to impress everybody or make everybody happy. But when I can't find an image or stock footage that is relevant enough, but we need something that's visual, that's important, that's when I go to the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And we draw our anatomical drawings and stuff like that. So, but we actually are going to have people, we've been tossing around the idea of getting artists to actually make scientific photos for this exact purpose, but that's a big part of the videos. And
it really is though. There's so many times where that's the struggle. I will say, the hardest part about making our videos, honestly, is the stock footage. That is the hardest part, because there's not a ton of high-end biological content. If you want to get something on, say, something broad, cells, cellular biology, chances are good you're gonna be able to find it. But if you want to get something nuanced, like we're talking about, it's oftentimes you just have no choice. And so then you're how much, so it's always this balance we're trying to strike between how much of our talking head, how much do we just want the static camera on our face versus trying to, tickle the person's ADHD, and just keep them focused. It's always a battle. It's I don't know that there's a correct or a wrong amount of stock footage, but we're always trying to find as good of a balance as we possibly can.
It's like the balance of like hardcore nitty gritty science and edutainment. Like this stuff is actually, this live stream stuff, teaching lectures is actually easier in my mind, just because you're just talking, you're not worried about as much of like keeping the ADD mind attentive and stuff like that. But you know, when you look at the Hubermans, the people, the Peter Thiels, like Joe Rogans, all those guys who just do talking heads, there's definitely a lot of audience members that like that stuff. And so, you know, that's why we're doing this stuff for people who just want to kind of get into a deeper look and stuff like that. And so we are going to have obviously no stock footage included in this live stream, but we can kind of finish talking about the stock footage.
I think that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm.
So the next question is, does human anatomy have mysteries for scientists these days with all the technology? For the most part, I would say not so much. There was that ligament around the knee, or that structure that came out like a couple of years ago. They recently, you know, I don't remember exactly when it was, because ever since we've gone online, my years have all blurred together. But the greater omentum more recognized, even though it's not like it was newly discovered, it was more classified differently as like an organ. But from a macroscopic perspective of finding structures, I would say not so much as far as mysteries, how things work, but then we're kind of dabbling into physiology. If we're talking microscopic anatomy, we're definitely still going to learn a lot more stuff about those interactions and how things like that as technology progresses. I was thinking about this a lot with just our videos, like just testing certain things on humans, like especially with exercise, and we were talking about muscle fibers in the last video. Now I'm going into this a little bit, so I'm just going to say it. But like when you're doing testing muscle fiber typing and stuff like that, like people are literally cutting into people's thighs or certain muscles and taking biopsies out of people right after they're exercising. And when we were talking about the ability, I was thinking when I was creating this video, as we exercise in a certain way, if we tend to do more endurance type activities versus explosive, more powerlifting type of things, you can actually shift your ratio of fast twitch to slow twitch. And I was just thinking kind of a funny thing, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but if we can get more effective imaging, if there's a way, some ways for us to figure out how to monitor and understand fiber types without literally cutting into somebody and doing a biopsy, that type of technology would be pretty awesome. I don't have any idea of how that would work, but because I was thinking like with a research study, if you took a group of people and you had like, you know, assigned one group to an endurance group, one group to a control, and then another group to like, you know, explosive type exercise. And before the study starts, you figure out what their percentage of fiber type is in their thigh, their quadriceps. And then 8 weeks later, you're like, oh, let's see if it's changed. You're like, okay, let's cut this open and see that. And people do that. But I was also even thinking, it was the stretch video that I was also thinking too. Like, what happens to the muscle fibers as you improve flexibility? And how do you take like a whole length of a muscle fiber without being totally invasive? So that's a little bit of a tangent, but it's kind of an example of how I kind of think as far as the anatomy physiology relationship. That stuff's always going to be learning new stuff and microscopically. But like I said, macroscopic anatomy, rarely are we going to find any like majorly new stuff.
Yeah, and I'm pretty similar. It's like, I mean, like, what was it? Not that long ago, they found new salivary glands.
Yeah.
In the like nasopharynx and the pharynx specifically, and then they also found like this thing called the interstitium, which was like this aspect of the immune system.
Yeah.
Of the lymphatic system. But the thing is, like, anatomists have known about all of this. It's really just this salacious headline. Yeah. New organ discovered. It's like, actually, no, anatomists have known about this. Histologists have known about this for a very long time. It's more like you're saying, we just may not understand its exact function or how it all works together. So it's like the new salivary glands, for example, it's like they're all these tiny little cellular globules. They're not really that big to even just see macroscopically. You have to see it through some kind of dye and some kind of imaging. Yeah. And even still, it's like, it's hard to even say how it works together. So it's like, I think we're pretty past the point of finding new stuff.
Yeah. It's
more now finding, oh, this has an additional function, or what does it even do in the first place? Yeah. I think that's really where we're headed. And I think for the most part, mysteries in terms of anatomy are pretty much gone.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Let's do it.
All right. So the next question is, how can you donate your body? Can you donate if you have cancer? So you can donate your body pretty easily. Like, it's ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, you'd almost be startled how easy it can be.
Well, it's not quite as easy as checking a box on a license, right?
For sure. But what I mean is like, this varies depending on the body donor program you do. So we deal with nothing but certified body donor programs. But you have to bequeath your body. So it's an actual form. You have to fill out the whole thing. And you're like, I want my body to be taken after my death. And then they try to get your body within 18 hours after death. And that's pretty easy to donate your body. There's only certain specific circumstances they won't allow it, like trauma.
Yeah.
Right? If I get in a car accident and then my cardiovascular system's compromised, you can't embalm it properly for our purposes.
Yeah.
So it's like, honestly, can you donate? How can you donate your body? You have to speak with the body donor program. That's what you have to do. And each one's going to be different, and there's different types all throughout the United States. And if you're outside of the United States, I can't even tell you what you're going to have to figure that out. And can you donate if you have cancer? Yes. And we could say that because like 3 or 4 of the cadavers in this room have cancer or some kind of cancer.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's 3 or 4 of the entire time we've had the bodies. So it's like,
I'm trying to think right now.
Because we had like lung cancer at one point.
Yeah.
We have breast cancer, colorectal cancer.
Yeah.
So that's 3. So maybe it is just 3, but
2 still here.
2 still here. So it's like cancer, yes. And especially because cancer is such a common form of death. If you made it so you couldn't, it's like, no, we can't accept any cancer bodies.
Yeah.
You would cut the pool of donors way down.
Yeah. I used to have a physiology teacher who would say, and this is very generalized, and this is more nuanced than what he said. He's like, if you live long enough, you're either going to get diabetes or cancer. And listening to him, you can kind of take his point, but obviously there's more to it and more nuance than that. But the other thing I was going to add with the body donor thing is there's very little restrictions. Obviously, you mentioned trauma can restrict the ability to donate bodies to science. They do have a weight limit. I think we have addressed this before, but I don't think it was in a live stream, but we talked about it in another video. But it's not to be mean. I think it was 300 pounds.
I think you have to fit on the table.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's not necessarily to be like, oh, we're discriminating against this person because they're heavy or anything like that. It's literally like even moving a body that's 150 pounds by ourselves, and as you guys can see the tables around us, that can be tricky. And so it's more of a management thing. It doesn't even have to be body fat. If the person was just a huge person, like just muscular 300 pounds, they still wouldn't accept it. So
and it's an imperfect process because it's like I often talk to people. It's like, well, what if you had, say, like some kind of atherosclerosis or something? That might be actually restricting the embalming preservatives from getting maybe not entirely, but maybe efficiently. And if you're more massive, like you just literally have more body fat, there's more to be embalmed. It's like it requires more embalming preservatives. It requires more efficiency of technique. It's just, I can see why from an embalming perspective, you're like, we're going to stop at 300 pounds or whatever.
Well, it's always funny because when you and I mean, we know a bit about the embalming process. We're not specialists. We don't do that part of it. But whenever we go to a body donor program, at least the guys that we like to go to the most, they're just so funny. They're awesome. And when you go in there and we're looking at the different bodies, you remember you've been there where they're like feeling like the thigh, they're like feeling the body. They're like, this body took well. And you're like, what does that mean? And so in our minds, we're thinking, okay, the embalming process went well with this body. And there's been bodies that are like, I wouldn't take this one yet because they're waiting to see how the embalming fluid kind of does its thing, I guess. So it's kind of in a way, it is kind of a science and a little bit of an art for them in the body donor program. So,
and when it comes to like age and height, I don't think there's an actual limit around age. I mean, like we have a cadaver that she's mid 90s. In here. So I mean, it's like, and it's hard to get really much older than mid 90s. It's like, for very few select people. Height, I do imagine there has to be a limit. I don't know what that height limit is.
We've never run into that.
But I imagine there has to be. It's like you can't take like Shaquille O'Neal. Like he's just literally not going to fit on the table. But I don't know what the actual height limit is.
As far as age, most of our bodies are concentrated around that high 70s, low 80s. And then we do have our youngest is in 60s, but also our oldest. That body's been here since January of 2013. That's pretty remarkable.
That is.
He's literally taught millions of people, which is awesome. So, and then, and it's, let's see, I don't know as far as what our last body was. We haven't even started doing the dissection on the last body.
On our newest body,
So the next question is, let's see, how do we how do you know if a person you work on had cancer? Well, a lot of the times the body donor program where we get the body will give us the cause of death, as you've obviously seen those emails and things like that. And so that's easy if the cause of death is cancer. Now, there are certain bodies that you could find, and this has happened in cadaver labs multiple times, where maybe they found a tumor that the person didn't know about it. It could have been a benign tumor that they found through dissection. It could have been small. It's hard to know. The body donor program doesn't get the ability to get their health history from age 0, from 0 all the way to death. And so they sometimes do give us what they know. They give us everything they know. Like they had hypertension or they had this, died from this. But so we definitely have, I can't think of a time where I found a cancer surprise. I don't think so. I think I always knew the bodies that had cancer. We have found other surprises that we've talked about in previous videos, like the lung and the torn Achilles and some other things. So
I mean,
and the hernia.
That's true. I forget about that. We should make more videos on the hernia. We should cut open the hernia.
We should do that. Yeah. Because if you guys want to watch an old school video, if you haven't watched it already, you can watch our first videos. Is
that like the second or third video?
It was one of our first videos of hernia, and we're so like stiff and dry and just totally not how we would behave in a classroom. But it was just like the room was like all white, not painted or anything like that. We've come a long ways, Justin.
No, it's almost impressively bad, like how bad it was in the beginning. But
yes,
I mean that's how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is, why do we hear a cracking sound from our joints? So I mean, primarily if we're talking about I like to pop my knuckles. I have since I was a kid. It's not. I do it in a weird way. Like I can show you. I don't know if I've ever shown you this. Like how I go like that and like bend it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you knocking on the door?
When I remember when I was a kid. Well, when I was a kid, I remember my big sister was walking around the house popping her knuckles, and she was pushing on them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to do it. I must have been this is one of my earliest memories, but I was able to pull it off if I hyperextended.
Yeah.
And then over time, it just started feeling good, and then I would stretch.
You only do it on that hand?
No, I can do it on both.
Yeah.
But it's only with the fingers. I have no other joint.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have EDS or anything, but it's like most of that sound is going to be an audible popping of gas inside of the joint itself.
Yeah.
Can you get some joint cracking sounds from bones hitting or tendons snapping? Yeah, that happens, but it's that is not really that common, at least compared to just your typical. I can pop my elbows. Have you ever seen me pop my elbows?
No.
Let's see if I can do it. I don't know if this will catch, but
oh my goodness.
Let's see if I can get both. I can't get both.
What's wrong with you?
Again, when I was a kid, I remember this is a horrifying story, dude. I remember I felt this pressure in my elbow once, and I just couldn't pop it, so I just went up to my room. I was young. I was probably 5 or 6. I remember I put my arm on my bedpost and then hit my elbow and just was screaming. It's like a 5 or 6-year-old kid, because the pain was so intense, and then it popped.
And
it was the greatest thing in the world, and then it's never stopped popping.
Oh, wow.
And then my left one just adapted. I never did, or at least I don't remember any inciting event. But
yeah,
so I wasn't the smartest kid. I'm still not the smartest adult. So I mean, it all kind of just kept going. But again, the joint cracking is primarily just going to be gas bubbles popping as you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's a property of fluid dynamics. So it's if you're in the bathtub, I always tell people push water, it creates bubbles. So when you're actually moving, you're creating synovial fluid bubbles with gases inside, and then as they pop and accumulate, you can make sound. So that's most of the sound.
Yeah. There's also a pressure component, and from a clinical standpoint too, and even when we taught pathology, do you remember that page where we talked about joint noises and crepitus?
Crepitus,
Yeah, it can be grinding cartilage. It can be it can be you said tendon snapping. I think what you meant was maybe flicking over a bone or something. Granted, you can hear a tendon snap if you literally tear it from an injury, but that's not what I think you were talking about. And then, but I always think of it from a pressure standpoint too. I have a love-hate relationship with chemistry when I was doing all the the pre-medical whatever stuff, because the chemistry program where I went was not very amazing. Salt Lake Community College was way better. Shout out to Salt Lake Community College chemistry for some reason. But anyway, smaller classrooms, better teachers there. Not going to tangent there, but one of the stuff I love, the labs that I love the best, is when I learned about supersaturated solutions, which ties into kidney stones and stuff like that, but also just what pressure does to the states of matter, solid, liquid, gas. And that's kind of also contributing to that, like the fluid dynamics, but also like when you crank on a joint, you're changing the pressure within the joint, which can change that state of, almost that boiling point. But it definitely influences those gas bubbles and those noises of that change of state from liquid to gas.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else to add on that?
No, I think I'm good with the crack.
Do you want to touch on something that people will usually ask after that, though? Is it bad to pop your?
Is it bad to you? Well, what I tell people is, like inherently no. Yeah. Like if it's just a popping, then that's fine. Like there's plenty of times I'll be just going through my day and a joint will pop. Yeah. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But when I do stuff like that, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like I always remind people, it's like, well, you have to think of like the articular cartilage on the surface of the joints. There's only so much.
Yeah.
So if you start taking a joint at a normal range of motion, you're going to start. The laws of physics are still a thing. When you're rubbing two things together, and especially if you're doing it in a strange way, you still might be operating within, I guess, technical normal range of motion. Yeah. But it's easy sometimes to pass. Like this is obviously bad.
Yeah.
So I imagine by doing this, which I probably should stop right now, it's like I am more likely to get arthritis. Like that wouldn't surprise me. I haven't looked into any data around that, but it's like if I went to like the doctor and they're like, you got arthritis, I'd be like, that fits.
Yeah.
Like I get that. That makes sense. But if they're like, no, you just got arthritis because you randomly popped, that would be so strange.
Yeah.
Like, that's not.
Yeah, it's always hard to know. You always hear people quoting that research study of like one guy, I can't remember what it was, like popped his knuckles daily on one hand and then didn't do it on his other hand and didn't develop any arthritis. I think I've heard people quote that. I've never actually read it myself, but to me, I'm just like, joint arthritis is multifactorial. It's hard to know, but in general, I'm with you that as far as like, if you're cranking on that joint, pushing the two cartilaginous surfaces together just to get the pop from a sensation standpoint, that's like, there's a possibility that you are going to put more pressure and wear and tear on that cartilage versus like just naturally you move. Like I move my knee will pop every once in a while. I get up in the morning. That stuff's normal and you don't really have to worry about that. So
yeah. Which by the way, like one just little side note, that's one case study. Even if that matters, it's like this one guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not enough. Not at all. You need way more data than just one dude. Like I'm gonna pop my one hand of knuckles.
I mean, it's kind of like say like if someone were to say like if I was like smoking cigarettes is bad, and then someone will be like, well, my grandpa smoked until he's 98. I'm like that doesn't. Yeah, that doesn't change the fact that he won the lottery.
Right.
Smoking is still bad. So yeah, one case study doesn't really matter.
No. So I guess it's on me now, right?
Yes.
So the next question is, what happens to the empty space when a woman has a hysterectomy? Pretty much the intestines just fill that space. There is a risk of like anytime you do an abdominal surgery, there is risk of scar tissue forming, or sometimes people form scar tissue with no abdominal surgeries, like yourself.
Yeah.
But generally, it's just the intestines will kind of come down and fill that space. The uterus, with with no fetus, no baby developing, and there's like, I want to say like this is not anywhere great measurement here. It's not a huge structure.
Yeah.
And the intestines will just kind of fill that space, but there is potential for scar tissue to form, and that can increase somebody's risk of developing, small bowel obstructions.
Yes. And then also, I mean, are they removing the ovaries?
Yeah.
So it's like, and that all is just going to add to it. But yeah, I mean, the body's not just going to be like, let's leave that space.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just, no, that was the uterus's space. I'm going to stay away from there.
Yeah. The small intestines just kind of move around where they want to go in a way. And that's why they're more at risk for these types of things like obstructions and things like that. So.
All right. So this next question is one that I know Jonathan's really going to want to spend some time on. Because he just loves talking about pets, but I'd like to know all the pets that each of you have. So for me, I have 3. So I have a cat. Her name is Megara from Hercules.
Megara?
Megara.
Like the cartoon Hercules?
Animated Hercules, yeah.
Isn't
Megara.
Her just Meg?
She goes by Meg, but she goes by Meg. No, Meg. She goes by Meg in there, but her name is Megara.
Yes.
And so I don't know how we got that, but it fits.
She manipulated Hercules in that movie.
She did.
Yeah.
They're going to make a live action Hercules, apparently, because they're making live action Disney everything. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah. I liked the movie. I watched it a lot when I was a little kid.
It's a great movie. I watch it all the time still.
Yeah. Well, you've got kids.
I mean, I have kids for that. So that makes sense. But I have Megara. We have a black cat. Then we have a 9 or 10-year-old Chihuahua. His name is Kage. It's Japanese for shadow. He's the grumpiest old Chihuahua, as Chihuahuas are, because they're just insanely territorial.
Yes.
And like most of his life, he only had, like us. And then all of a sudden, within like a year, all of a sudden it's like, we got a cat, then we had a kid, then we have another kid, and now we got another dog.
Has he brought them all into his pack yet?
He hates all of them. He hates everyone in that family. He hates my kids. He hates the other pets.
Who does he like?
No one. He likes me and Misty. That's it. That's the only. We're it. So he's a grumpy old man. He has no teeth.
Oh, really?
His tongue just like hangs out.
Did you guys get him as a puppy, or was it?
Misty did.
Okay.
Yeah, she got him as a puppy. So,
yeah.
he's a great dog. I love that dog. It's just he is so mean to everyone. So, but not really. He doesn't bite. But
yeah.
And then we also got an English cream retriever. So it's a golden retriever, but just picture a golden retriever but white.
Yeah.
She's majestic. She's wonderful. She's insane.
She's majestic.
She's majestic because she has like the long golden retriever hair. She's just so pure.
How do the two get along?
She loves Kage. And by the way, her name is, did I say her name? Her name is Yue.
Okay.
Yue.
Why?
It's from, I don't know, have you ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Like
the cartoon.
Oh,
like the Nickelodeon show.
No, there was like a live action movie that came
one
out
doesn't
years
count.
ago. Okay.
That doesn't count. We pretend that doesn't exist.
Okay.
You should watch that, by the way.
Okay.
It's actually good. There's a character in there named Yue who becomes the moon.
Okay.
So we named her that. It actually fits. It's a good name. So we have Yue, the golden retriever, Kage, the chihuahua, and then Megara, the black cat.
Your names are much more elegant than the names of our
Is yours like Steve?
No. A little better than Steve. Okay, now this question's a little bit triggering for this one. Yeah, so we had a dog die this weekend. It was really bad and actually traumatic. So we're going to still include her. But
what happened?
I'll tell you right now, it's rough, man. Like, sorry, everybody. Like, this is going to be a rough one. So the original pets. So there's the 3 kids, and then Ari and me, and then we've got 2 cats. They're brothers. They're the biggest freaking cats I've ever seen. For me, like my cat, her name was Molly. This is my family. Molly lasted 23 years. She loved life. Wow. Molly was a small cat, but she's like was with me my whole childhood, Justin. And then we had to let her go a few years ago because she was getting old. But anyway, 23. Molly's was like my family childhood cat. But this adult family, I guess you could say, we have Jupiter, and because he's one of those orange. Is that a tabby cat?
I think Tabby's like the spot. I think Tabby's like the pattern.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. So he's like the orange colors, and so like the little kids when they got him, they're like, oh, he looks like the planet Jupiter. So, and the other one, his brother. So he had the brother.
Like orange, like Garfield.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so he came from the same litter as his brother, the same litter brothers, I guess you could say. Litter mates. Yeah. So in Gremlin, he's a really pretty cat. He's gray and white, but mostly gray and like white paws and stuff like that. Gremlin is a little more grouchy, and he's bigger. Gets in lots of fights, and so
the name was good.
Yeah, for Gremlin. Yeah. So those 2 are in their teens. Are they 12? Are they in their teens? No, they're around 10. I'm gonna get corrected on this by like the kids and Ari and everybody, but that's just they're still running around outside, and they like being outside. But Jupiter is the most verbal cat. Yeah. He will not stop meowing all the time, and he sounds like a squeaker. Like he reminds me of the squeaker in Toy Story. That guy, or
like the penguin.
Yeah,
Toy Story 2.
Yeah, he's kind of got that squeaky meow. Yeah. And then we have 2 dogs. But we'll get into that. Delilah is the Chihuahua. She's a deerhead Chihuahua, 9 pounds. And then we have Cece. She's a teacup Chihuahua, 4.5 pounds. And I don't understand how they evolved to be so dang.
I don't understand either. Yeah, Misty's sister has one like this tiny. Call her Nibbies.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she's 4 pounds. She's so small you can't even get spayed. Like physically, it's like it'll kill her.
Really? Yeah, we were able to spay Cece, but so Cece's only 1.5 years. Delilah was 11. So Cece is the most verbal dog on planet Earth. Like it's like you go up to pet her and she's like. So when we first started trying to come up with names, I wanted to name her Chewbacca, because of how she just talked all the time. We just call her Chewie.
What color is she?
She's like a white. She kind of looks like a roasted marshmallow color. Like she's got like kind of a whitish color.
I don't know if that would work for a Wookiee.
I know, but it was just her noises reminded me of that. But then the kids are like, well, that's not a good name for her. Cece's better, so I lost out on that one. But she's my dog is the funny thing. Like they call her my dog because that was their way of convincing me to keep her. Because I came home from work, the clinic, like a year ago, and there was this box on the table, and they're like, "Open the box," and I opened the box. I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And I'm such a sucker for like, oh, she was so cute, and I couldn't say no. But anyway,
well, can you really say no in that scenario though?
No.
Like, what kind of monster would say
I know
no?
you're just a monster to the kids. So
you're
anyway,
like, no.
So
I don't
yeah,
want that dog.
no. But so Cece's my dog technically, and even though I didn't get to really name her, and then we have a hamster named Mort.
Mort.
Yeah, it's a Daphne's hamster.
I've never had a hamster, gerbil, anything like that. Like I remember growing up and going, and it just like it never interested me. I was like, what does it do?
Yeah, this one they did without me too. That's how it works. Sometimes you come home and there's a new animal, and now I'm gonna like put my foot.
But it's not just a new animal; it's a new smell too.
Yeah,
like there's a smell that comes with it. I don't know if I'm down for it.
So we're gonna get to more anatomically based questions here because I have to tell the traumatic story real quick. So maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, I'll tell you. Yeah, well, people probably.
Well, now you have. I mean, you can give like a.
Small, okay, so
you don't have to go into any gory details.
So they stay outside a lot of the time, especially when we're gone. And we've kept them outside on our porch and patio for years. And ever since we've had them. And so they have these long leashes and they run around. But Delilah is a rescue. And so she is an escape artist. She just is. Like when I first came, and I'm like, let's put her in the kennel like at night because she was barking and being misbehaving. And they're like, she'll get out. I'm like, no, she won't. But she will get out. I'm like, no, she won't. She gets out. She will not give up until she figures out getting her teeth on the little thing, the clip. And I'm like, well, we could have probably locked it like with a padlock or something. But anyway, I was shocked. She will climb the chain link fence, Justin, to get out of the yard.
That's impressive.
And she doesn't want to run away. She just does not want to be caged. And then she'll just wait in the front yard for us to bring her back in, right? And it's like, so now we're like, okay, we're kind of worried if like you did go in the front yard and maybe you went out in the street and we don't want you to get hit, right?
Yeah.
So we put her on a leash, and she did not like that apparently this day. She'd been fine hundreds of times on the leash. She jumped off the balcony.
That's terrible.
And the leash wasn't long enough. And so it
oh
was
my
like,
God.
Yeah, it was bad. And the 15-year-old, he went out and was looking for her just to bring her back in because they'd been out
Jeez.
And it was bad.
That's
horrifying. It was traumatic, and she was dangling, and everybody's blaming themselves, and it's like it's nobody's fault. Like we've had her on the leash hundreds of times, and she just for some reason decided to jump. And
God, man, that's
because it's not like Cece pushed her off. Like I can't imagine a scenario where it's like she slipped or fell off or anything like that. Because where she was, she had to like actually move to get to that point. It's not like that, the 4-pound Chihuahua had anything to do with it, because the 4-pound Chihuahua was just standing there. It was like, and that was really sad. I don't know how much dogs can feel and sense and stuff like that, but she was definitely off. The little Chihuahua. She was just like looking for her for the next 2 days. It was so sad. It sucked.
That's terrible, man. That's seriously terrible.
But now, sorry for the little downer, everybody, but we got a little paw imprint made from her and everything, and she was a good dog.
That's good.
She was a good dog.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's seriously terrible.
It's your turn now.
Yeah, now we'll transition back from that. So where are we at?
Let's see.
The pets.
Where can an anatomy degree lead you? I guess I should put the camera on me here. So, anatomy degrees most often are either stepping stones to like medicine or graduate degrees. So, for example, there are some schools that do undergraduate anatomy degrees. Like you can get a bachelor's degree in anatomy. What can you do with that? Mostly at that point, you could teach anatomy. Even if you're going to like PhDs, a lot of people are either going to be doing research with the dissection and maybe the microscopic stuff we were talking about earlier, like researching interactions with physiology, but a lot of it's going to be teaching. And so Abby, actually our dissector here, she just got accepted to a PhD program for anatomy. And so she's going to be doing some teaching, research, lots of dissection, I'm assuming, like she's already doing here. But I think her end goal is that she wants to be a professor. If you were going to do an undergraduate degree in anatomy, that's most often a stepping stone or teaching at a high school level or a community college level. At a master's or PhD, obviously you can teach at more of a college level. And so I wish the university I went to had created their anatomy PhD, or not PhD, bachelor's degree prior to when they did, because I would have done that.
Yeah.
They finally made it available like after I was a year from graduating. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go back and do all this stuff. But mostly it's a stepping stone to medicine or teaching in general.
Yeah. I don't know that I have much to add. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. So the next question is the human brain able to make fake memories? How are memories stored in the brain? So first I'll say how memories are stored. It really comes down to, there's basically short-term memory and then there's long-term memory. So short-term memory is going to be stored in an area called the hippocampus. Hippocampus is part of your limbic system. Limbic system is like one of the most ancient areas inside of your nervous system. But that's kind of like right now, everything that we're doing is being stored in our hippocampus. And then if any of it is worth remembering, then it can get transitioned into long-term memory, which then goes to the neocortex. So that can go, and memories are actually, there is no memory center. That's something that like a lot of people don't understand. Like, yes, short-term memory has a memory center. What are you laughing about?
I'm just saying they can see the camera.
What's happening?
I was like, I gotta look at the live stream stats. What's going on?
I'm trying to teach here.
I know. Continue on. I apologize.
This guy's in. Where was I? See,
the
irony of it. I can't remember where I was. So the point is, memories are stored all over and all throughout the brain. There is no actual, at least long-term memory. There's no place like that. But the more interesting question in my mind is, can you make fake memories? And yes, and there's actually a real term for it. It's called confabulation. People, or misremembering is probably like the lay person way to say it. I just said that weird, but if you're confabulating, it's where, because memory is imperfect, right? Yeah. Like I always tell people, it's like try, and I'll even give you this example, Jonathan. What did you eat this morning?
I had a bagel from Rich's Bagel. I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to get accurate. Here we go. Okay. It was on a honey whole wheat bagel. It had bacon, scrambled egg mixed with spinach, cheese. And it was toasted.
So when you went and got it, did you like go to the store? Like did you actually go to the Rich's Bagel place? Right.
Got out of the car, walked in.
So can you remember like everything about how the bagel looked? Describe the bagel for me.
Of course I can. It was circular with a hole.
I want more details on that, Jonathan. Get descriptive.
Right.
I want you to.
It was like, brown.
Put me in your.
It was
mind.
like brown, like kind of similar to like you'd see like, a wheat bagel. Mm-hmm. But I can't like verbalize exactly what's happening.
Why? You just ate it.
I did just eat it, but it's like
that was a few hours ago, right?
It's brown and it's textured. Kind of had a rough bottom to it, or are they like?
Describe to me the brown. Was it like a uniform brown? Was there darker spots?
It wasn't spotted like you'd see like major spots, but there was like transitioning of like a smooth transition of lighter to darker.
See,
brown.
You're confabulating right now. He has no idea.
I guarantee.
No. Here's the
thing. Take a picture of one of those bagels.
So here's the reason I'm saying.
I know. I get your point.
It's like there's certain amounts of data that is just not that important for us. Mm-hmm. So it's like on my drive here, like if I were to sit there and tell you like, yeah, this person cut me off, or I'm telling you the highlights, right? The things that make actual sense. I'm completely forgetting most of that trip from point A to point B. But it's like if you started interrogating me, then I could start filling it in. And they've actually done the science on this, and most of that is complete crap. Yeah. Like most times, like it's kind of true, but what instead is you are confabulating. You're actually
to fill in the gaps.
You're making assumptions based on the start point, the end point.
What makes sense to fill it in?
You fill it in with what most likely happened. Yeah. And what's crazy is that is something we are all doing. So it's like if you can't remember your bagel that well, I'm talking. Could you draw it? Could you get the textural differences?
Well, if I drew it, you'd just tell me I confabulated my drawing.
It's true. This is that's you're not going to win that scenario. But the point is, that's why it's like what's interesting to me about that is like when you start talking about
confabulate your memories about Batman.
No, I know that for a fact because I am constantly diving deep into Batman. So that sounded terrible. Yeah. Diving deep into Batman, but. So you wouldn't have caught that, but they would have caught that in the comments. But no, I always tell people this is the problem with eyewitness testimony. Is it's like eyewitness testimony is really not worth that much. Yeah. For a trial lawyer or anything, because it's just your memory is so imperfect. So fake memories, you can literally misremember all sorts of stuff. And that's something that people don't really understand at like just how big that can be. So yes, you can make fake memories, but even those fake memories are built off of something true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lying. We're not talking about lying here. This is actually you think you remember something.
You're not like consciously misrepresenting something or anything like that. Yeah. Ari and I have been talking about that lately, and we've actually been calling it what your brain is editing out. Like, you mean like from point A to point B, like the stuff you don't notice, and then like you drive a road like 100 times, and then one day you're like, I didn't even notice that house there, or this. It's funny how like your brain kind of only focuses on what we could call quote unquote the important stuff. We talked a little bit about that in like one of the videos, as far as like what I was talking about, like of course as being a nerd, and I was saying people like, can you feel your pants on your legs, right? And then your brain kind of does the setting. That's a little different. That's more of like sensory input than the actual memories, but there's some similarities you could draw from that. But I'm gonna try to draw the bagel when I get home.
I want to see it.
Okay.
Text me the picture.
What are your plans for the Institute several years from now? Will there be more people working there besides you two? Well, we actually have more than just the two of us. So some of you who've watched us before, you probably have heard us mention Jeremy. So Jeremy's my brother-in-law. I married my sister when I was like in the 9th grade or something like that. So he's been around for a while now. He's more of like the guy behind the scenes. But he's I mentioned this last time, he's on our thumbnail for our creatine video. If you want to see what Jeremy looks like, go look at our creatine thumbnail video. He's carrying a bucket during a Spartan. And we have Abby, we've mentioned. We have Jen right behind this camera. Do you guys want us to make Jen come in front of the camera? Jen, are you nervous about this? Jen's saying no.
Just fine.
Yeah, so Jen's here. She's doing our social media, working a lot with Facebook and helping manage a lot of those things. So our plan is that we are going to need to get more people in the future, but with you and I, we struggle with this all the time. Like, where do we get that? What people do we need next, and who's the type of help that we need? And I often think it'd be awesome to have a camera crew, somebody managing the filming and all that stuff. That'd be awesome. So that
I know. I daydream about that. I daydream about having like a producer, someone that's like, everything's set up, but the hard part is then I also go, but is that going to mess up with my flow? Like, I know it will to begin with. So then that's
like
always
you'll be self-conscious a little bit.
Well, it's like I'm like, am I wasting other people's time? Like if it's only me in here filming,
right?
I only have my time to waste.
You're going to be wasting this time with people that we're paying.
We're paying to come and help us. So I don't know. It's like it's hard because I think we all recognize the need for help. I think one of the hard things is just figuring out, okay, well, what can we do better, and what do we actually need help with? And then so it's hard.
And there's a fear from my perspective, and I think you share this a little bit too. And it's not really a fear. That's probably the wrong word. It's more of like right now you and I are kind of tapped out. Like we're like maxed out. And so if we bring somebody on, there is a level where our workload would kind of blip up a little bit to kind of train them and get them to where we need it to do. But then ultimately you're hoping that that if you're hiring the right people, then that workload's going to go down, and they're going to be an addition to the company and help you kind of progress and move things forward even faster. So short answer, well, that wasn't a short answer, but yes, we are planning on getting more people in here.
We just don't know who and how and when. Help us, people. That's what we're trying to say. So, all right. So next one. Where are we at? So the inside of cheeks fascinate me. They're constantly wet. That's the first time I'm reading this question. But do not wrinkle or change in texture because of this. My question is, what tissue are they made out of? So your cheeks are going to have mucous membranes. That's going to be like the inner lining, right? Like every surface you can touch is going to be covered in some form of epithelial tissue. And then in this form, it's a mucous membrane. I mean, you're going to have connective tissue. There's going to be muscle in there. It's really like if you were to like start in and then go like out like that, or it's like it really depends on which direction we're going from. But it's like when it comes to cheeks, I mean it's skin, connective tissue, muscle, and then mucous membranes. I mean, essentially is what you got. Salivary glands, depending on where you're going in there.
It's like a modified epithelial lining. But if you pinch your cheek, because that's gonna be really easy for you to understand. When you pinch that, you've got the skin, you've got the buccinator muscle in there that helps you blow and manipulate food around. But yeah, when we're inside mom, there's a process of where the mouth initially kind of invaginates in and takes part of that epithelial tissue. So it's a modified, you can say modified stratified squamous epithelium with the capacity to produce mucus. And then you get the tongue, and we don't need to go into that because we have a full video on a tongue. Did not do very well, and I'm still hurting over it.
Sore about that one?
Yeah. I thought it was going to be fun.
Well, that's the thing. Honestly, I thought about doing a tongue video, and I had that same realization where I was like, I don't think it'll do well, which bums me out because the tongue is so cool.
Yeah.
The tongue is amazing.
Yeah.
Like I like that's like one of my favorite things to do is like when I'm teaching a digestive lecture.
Yeah.
Is also like I love talking about how wrong science was around like
like the taste,
like the topography of it, like and the discovery of umami. You know, I think that if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I did it. I don't know if you remember this. But I think it was like in the 1990s. It was that recent that we discovered umami.
Yeah.
So it's like the tongue is super cool. So it's depressing that video didn't do as well, but I get it.
Yeah.
It's like when you think like how many people are on their computer like I need to know more about the tongue. I don't think it's a lot.
And sorry, ButcherBox, they were the sponsor of that video. I really loved that sponsor. I loved ButcherBox.
Yeah.
So this is a plug for ButcherBox, even though they are not sponsoring this live stream.
Give us another chance.
Right? It was so good. Anyway, like that stuff's actually easy. Can we just tangent on that really quick, like with sponsors and stuff like that? We really try to do sponsors that we really believe in, and it's a struggle sometimes. Because I know, like from a viewer, like you and I are viewers, and we're also YouTube creators. Like I'm like instinctively, whenever I see a sponsor come up, I'm like, skip it, you know? And I'm like, wait, I can't do that. I'm being a hypocrite, right?
Yeah.
And so. But yeah, the sponsors, the hardest sponsors, I just want to give you guys some insight on this, are, in my opinion, are actually a lot of the supplement stuff.
Yeah. Because
being a scientific channel, you want to promote something that actually does something for somebody that's not going to waste their money and stuff like that. You know, so Athletic Greens works really well for us, I think, because, you know, we know what vitamins do. You know, and not everybody's vitamin deficient and things like that, but it's one of those things that is nice to be able to know, okay, I got all my vitamins for the day. And so vitamins are fairly easy. Like I could do a protein supplement, you know, those would be pretty straightforward, but stuff that's like still not proven. Justin and I struggle with that all the time. I should have both of us on this camera.
Well, I mean, I'll even say this because this is like Jeremy, who we just mentioned. Jeremy asked me this morning. He's like wondering if, I mean, I'm not going to say the brand or anything. He was asking like, hey, do you feel comfortable with a hair restoration company? Because I don't know why Jeremy's asking this. Like I have a beautiful head of hair.
You do.
And the thing what I told him is it's like I'm not saying no because I don't think it works.
Yeah.
I'm saying no right now because I want to try it out and see if it works, or at least
I almost said it.
I want to.
I was like, it's this one, right?
Yeah. I want to spend enough time with it to figure out, even if it doesn't work for me. Because let's say this hypothetical scenario, because I really have great hair.
Yeah.
Like there's certain kinds of baldness too that aren't going to really respond that well. So it's like even if it doesn't work for me, that doesn't mean it wouldn't work for others. What I said to Jeremy was I was like I want a little more time before I feel comfortable exposing it to the audience.
Yeah, and the same idea, like there's medications for baldness that do have a lot of data behind it, and I think the company you're talking about might also use some of that stuff. I'm not sure though.
Maybe.
But the product they were talking about, that one, I can see why you want more time on that. Yeah, sponsors are tricky, but that's why I love ButcherBox, because the opinionated sponsors is just like, oh, I like this food. That's actually way easy.
Oh yeah,
you know, and something I would buy myself. I feel totally comfortable. Like Brilliant, Brilliant we love because Brilliant is educational platform. I have it on my phone. I literally use it, and it just goes hand in hand with what we do. So I guess I just felt like we should.
No, I'm glad you did it, because I mean, I feel like this is something we think about all the time.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like every video, you know, for the most part, we're doing this type of thing.
Yeah.
And I just want everyone who's listening to understand, like, we take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like every single sponsor that comes on the channel, it's like, not only do we do our research on it, but then it's like we experience the product.
Yeah.
And so, and we're pretty clear about it. We're just like, if we don't believe in it, we're not going to put it out there. And believing doesn't mean like we're passionate. Like, you know, I'm out there like, brilliant, like screaming it to everybody. You know what I mean? It's more that I understand what the company is. I know what they're trying to achieve, and I believe in it, and I feel like it's going to be effective. Yeah. And so it's finding that it's always a challenge for sure.
So, and another thing that is nice is we do appreciate everybody's, like, I don't want to say like bearing with us or tolerating that. You know, I think it's kind of just the way of YouTube now, but you know, some of the sponsors our audience might like, and others are like, I want to skip like right through this, and that's fine. We're the same way, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how sponsors do know that people are not always going to want their product, but at the same time, it has made it so we can do what we do here. Like even the equipment that we're using right now is like it's how we make our videos better and put money into the company and the channel and stuff like that. So
I think that's important I think it's for those who are listening to understand that it's like just a little bit of insight in like how a YouTube channel works for us, like for not just us, but it's like we are beholden to AdSense. Like when you're using YouTube as a revenue model to help build the company and everything, it's like you're dependent upon AdSense. And what I think people need to understand is like for our channel, we don't get the greatest. Like if you were to compare what we make compared to other channels,
it hurts our hearts when we talk about
it's like nothing.
Yeah.
Because, and I understand this to an extent because it's like, oh, well, it's graphic content. How graphic is it really? I think we could argue and debate about that with other people because I think we're on the same page. It's not really graphic. But the only way to actually be successful YouTubers is one, you either like you have to have incredible CPMs and RPMs. So basically you're making a ton of money from just Google, or because we don't do that. Or you have to then use targeted sponsored ads and integrations. That's how we keep things going. So I know like because we see it. Like we'll get in the comments and people be like, I paid YouTube Premium. I didn't want to see this ad. And I totally get that. I'm like, I'm with you. All I'm asking you is just to then skip through it. You know, like real quickly, just understand like we do this for a reason so that we can continue giving you this free content is basically what it is.
Yeah. It's that balance and juggling act, you know, and that's the thing. Sometimes the sponsors will hit with a select few of the audience and others will not. And we understand that. And it's one of those things that when you mentioned like the AdSense and stuff like that and how different channels can do different things. You mentioned graphic content. It still drives me nuts though. Like, I don't know if you saw the thing come across YouTube Studio the other day that they updated their language, their language policies. And so, because I was always like, you know, and I would say like testicle or I would say penis, and we're not like being graphic and we're talking about education here. Like, and like, yeah, it's a little weird for people to see a dissected testicle, right? I get that to a certain degree, but the whole point and the reason for doing it is educational content so people understand their bodies more. And the policy said now that in the first 8 seconds, you can't use any vulgar language.
Really?
Right. But after the 8 seconds,
then we're good?
You can swear. So I'm like, so after the first 8 seconds, they just drop like 10 F-bombs right in a row and they're going to get fully monetized? And I'm getting in trouble for saying testicle. So
honestly, it's frustrating because like, I
shouldn't say I'm getting in trouble. It's like the algorithm will pick it up and be like, we need to demonetize.
Well, I think that's our biggest gripe. Is it's like we love YouTube. Like, I'm not saying like we hate YouTube by any means, but it's like there's certain things that are just frustrating. Like, in terms of consistency. So like whenever you upload a video, whenever you upload a video, you have to then actually say, sorry. So like, whenever you upload a video though, you have to say like, oh, this has violent content, shocking content, and then you actually rate it. Is it lightly shocking, moderately shocking, or really shocking? And that actually matters versus your monetization. It says in the YouTube, whenever we upload a video, that you can show genitals in an educational manner. Yet, if we show even a picture of a genital, an artist's rendition. So I don't know if you remember this, the vulva. So like the female external genitalia, we weren't showing it in this video that got demonetized because of this, or they said they wouldn't accept it. We didn't show a cadaver vulva.
It was a picture.
It was a picture, and it was an artist rendition that is in textbooks all over the place.
It's a cartoon picture,
and they said, according to YouTube's own community guidelines, this is okay. We sent it in for review, and they're like, not okay. And we're like, so what is okay? Like, that's so frustrating because it's like when you're trying to be an educator, especially with human anatomy and biology, it's like, this is the gig though. Like, like what do you expect from us? So
and I do want to just clarify wrap up this whole part of the conversation, and then we'll get into some of the last questions that you guys had here, is that we do have a great relationship with YouTube. We've been able to work with different teams and different departments, I guess you could say, within YouTube that has definitely helped us grow our channel and know where that line is for us. Even though I think our gripe is like we don't agree sometimes with this line here versus that line here, where it's just that view of like what's graphic and what's not, what's okay. But we definitely have had a ton of help and a lot of support there. So don't get us wrong when we're
for sure. And the other thing I want to say is it's like every person we've ever talked to with YouTube is awesome. And they understand what we're doing. And it's like, and it goes back to like how big of a company Google is
Yeah.
and what YouTube is. Like, if you think about just the sheer amount of content that is uploaded, it's a challenge. I'm not like trying to shame them or anything. I'm just saying, like, as a creator, it's frustrating.
Oh yeah.
But I understand how this is all really challenging for them. So this is not being directed at YouTube as much as it's like YouTube. You know, like it's like this general YouTube. Everyone we've ever worked with at YouTube is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully you like our little tangents on what goes behind the scenes and in our brains here. So next question was, how hard is it to break a bone? And that is a loaded question. It depends on the bone, depends on the health status of that individual. There's so many factors that you really depend, like that really kind of depend on this. I've had patients come in where I'm like, there's no way they broke the bone, and they broke it. Yeah. And I've had patients come into the clinic where I was like, they for sure broke the bone, and it didn't, you know. And so you could analyze the strength of each bones and stuff like that. There's certain situations where you're, that's going to break doing that. But that's a hard question to answer. Especially if somebody has osteoporosis, it's not very hard to break certain bones and things like that. So I know that's not a very robust question, but that's one of those questions that's very hard to give a definitive answer on.
For sure. We're kind of like running out of time, so I'm kind of looking ahead to see. I'm looking at the questions real quick, but to see if there's anything. Which one did you want to?
Oh, there's a goosebump question.
I'll let you do the goosebump one. Let's see. I'll actually answer this one because I think it kind of helps understand people. Like, so it says, do you purchase the donated bodies? And I think purchase is probably the wrong way to think about it. Like, yes, there is an exchange of money because you have to think about these body donation programs are a business.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a cost of it. Like, they have to pay for everything, like the staff, the equipment, everything.
And some of them are more business than others.
Yes, and that's why we're so selective. It's like we're not just because you say you're a body donor program doesn't mean that you're.
Our favorite one is not much of a profit one.
It's
mostly like you're saying, is paying the people that work there and paying for the supplies, paying for the fees and things like that.
Exactly. So the exchange of money is really essential just to actually keep the whole thing going. It's not like this money-making scheme or anything like that. So you have to, but again, it's not like we purchased the body either because we're more like stewards.
Yeah.
So instead, what we've done is we've given the money so that they can keep doing what they're doing. And in exchange, we then get to dissect the body and operate within their own guidelines, right? The body donor programs tell us, like, this is what's allowed, what's not allowed, so on and so forth. Yeah. So it's like, I don't think purchase is the right way to think about it. It's more like, is there a monetary exchange? Yes.
Yeah.
But
it's like a fee or like fee of services.
Exactly.
How I think of it.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. Things cost money. They have employees that they're paying and things like that. And like we kind of mentioned, there are other body donor programs. I don't know what their bottom line is by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like some are profiting more than others. And I don't know where you draw that line. I'm all about people making money and growing their business, but as long as if they're ethical, it's like, I don't know.
And that's the hard part.
There's that line of where do you cross over that line? There was that none of the families get money. Like it's not like you pay the family and they get money for the body or anything like that. So that could, and I think has led to some interesting things in other countries. Yeah. I remember a body donor program person telling us about India. Do you remember hearing about that stuff? Where they were getting, the family did get some amount of money in monetary exchange for donating their bodies to science. Yeah. And it was good in some senses. Like, this is a very poor country. I think it was India, where they were getting enough money where they could feed their family for like a year. Yeah. And so on one hand, I was like, like if a grandparent knows they're going to die and a grandparent says, well, when I pass away, donate my body to science, take that money and feed yourselves. I can understand that would be a really cool thing to do. But you could also see how the evil side of that could come where people are leaving the world before they need to leave earlier or something like that. People using the money for different reasons and stuff like that. So that you get to a really weird and sketchy situation.
It reminds me, did you ever read Stiff by Mary Roach?
I didn't read Stiff.
Stiff is such a good book. You should read it. Like, it's something that I recommend to everybody. So Stiff, The Curious Life of Cadavers or something like that by Mary Roach. But she goes into like really into detail the history of anatomy. Yeah. And when you realize I'm going to be honest, like anatomy, I love anatomy. Obviously, I love anatomy. It has the shadiest origins out of like any science ever. And we're not going to go into it like specifically right now. I really do think it's valuable for people to read the book, but just understand like there was a time when anatomy was illegal that anatomists,
the stereotypical grave robbing, you know?
Right. Well, instead of even just grave robbing, because they didn't even want to like take the risk, they would pay people to go grave rob for them.
Yeah.
And then those people just were like, why would I put in the effort to dig up the corpse when I could just kill this other person? And like, you see what I mean? Like, so that has like little shades of that where it's ethics surrounding body donation has always been hard, which is why we're so, so selective. That's the best word.
Yeah, I'm glad we've remained selective because we have, and we're not going to mention any names, but we have had people reach out to us that wanted to work with us in the past that have been in shady situations, and we've just been so selective with that. So I'm glad we have kept ourselves like with the body donor programs that we know are ethical and do awesome things, and creates this win-win where we can educate so many people from this amazing anatomical gift. It's awesome. And we talked on this during our last live stream. We really are like super grateful for the bodies. Justin and I will sometimes talk out loud while we're alone in here to the bodies that, and it's kind of funny as far as like, hey, thanks. Oh, oops, I bumped into you. Sorry. It's like,
I asked one the other day when I was filming if that was a good take.
Is that a good take?
Yeah, like I did.
I once said one name out loud. I was like, yes, that was awesome, so and so. But yeah, because we don't tell their names, obviously.
Yeah.
But let's see, we're pretty much out of time.
You do the last question.
Let's see, the goosebump question. When you get scared, why do our hairs on our arms raise? Same with goosebumps. So we're talking about the same thing here. What's interesting is that humans have lost a lot of hair, I guess you could say, from throughout the process of evolution, at least from common ancestors. And so the goosebump muscle is a smooth muscle that is involuntary and engages in certain situations. Obviously, cold is one of the things that stimulates the goosebump muscle. Now, with an animal that has a whole body of fur, that makes that makes a big difference when that goosebump muscle contracts and it pulls the hair follicle more in a vertical position, and it creates these little pockets of air in these little spaces between the fur where the body can heat it up, and it is a form of insulation. Now, there's also things that happen when these goosebump muscles get activated in highly emotional situations. If you think of an emotional situation from, say, like the dogs that we've talked about today, when they get angry and their fur on their spine, it looks like their spine comes out of their back. They call it hackles. Is that what it's called?
I didn't know there was a term.
I don't know. But yeah, you've all seen that before where it almost looks like their spine comes out of their back, but it's really just the goosebump muscles contracting in those areas and lifting up the fur. And it makes the animals look larger, more ferocious. And you guys have all seen a dog. They look scarier. Whenever I think of that, I think of a German Shepherd for some reason, who's like a police dog that's going after some criminal.
I think like a cat, like
yeah, the cats are great too. And so what I'm getting at with this is that there are emotional centers in the brain that influence the engagement of these goosebump muscles. And so certain times people will feel like goosebumps when they hear like, something inspiring or something like that. And so there's this connection with emotions and the goosebump muscles. And I usually lead into that with giving the example of like the fear of a dog or the anger, is a dog angry or scared when they have the hackles come up? I don't know. It's kind of a fight or flight type of thing.
And I would just add, like, to me, I think it's important to understand just how there are redundant pathways neurologically too. So it's like the amygdala, which is part of your limbic system, is where negative emotions are processed. So like if I were to just like kick Jonathan in the shins right now, under the table, just like totally nail him, it's like, you're going to get mad, obviously, but that's an amygdalary reaction. But then what happens is like your frontal cortex takes over and goes, why did he kick me?
Right.
Maybe I'm going to get him back some other way, or I'm just going to say something mean. But if you actually went back in time, and if I did that, like 5-year-old Jonathan, kicked him in the shins, he'd probably lose his mind because he hasn't he doesn't have the frontal cortex development to actually override the amygdalary reaction. The reason I'm saying this is because emotions can be super complex, and you can have neuronal pathways that share pathways with the same ones that trigger the amygdalary reactions. And so it's like in animals, emotion is really, it's best because we can't ask a cat. how did that feel? You know, like we don't. The assumption is their emotions, or at least their perception of emotions, is less specific than ours. And so it's easier for them to just get any emotion to trigger that reflex.
Yeah.
Where with us, you hear a good song,
yep,
and it causes the reflex. You get mad, it causes the reflex. Like we have more nuance to our emotions, where with animals it's much more streamlined, and you have those similar neuronal pathways. So.
Absolutely. That also, this is a little bit of a tangent, like we always do, but that kind of also reminds me of the idea of why you rub your arm when you bonk it, or you hit it, or why icy hot can kind of actually provide relief. Like when you have, like, you hit your arm and you start to rub it, you know, there's other neurons that you stimulate that will take the same pathway up to the brain and almost distract the brain from the pain, because you're sending a different signal, but along the same pathways up the cord into the brain. And it does have this ability to kind of lessen the initial trauma or the pain of the response. And so kind of the reverse pathway, I guess.
It's like, when was the last time you watched Major Pain?
Major Pain? Like the old school movie?
Major Pain?
What's the actor's name?
He's one of the Wayans brothers. Is it Damon Wayans?
Yeah.
I forget, but he's hilarious.
Yeah.
We were watching it the other day, and I forgot he did this. Like, there's this part where in the very beginning, one of the Marines is injured. He's like been shot or something, and he's like, he comes up and he's like, "Does it hurt?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then I can't remember, what did he do? I think he like breaks his like thumb or something. And the guy's like, "Ah!" And he's like, and it was just hilarious to me because it was like, yeah, I see how that works.
Yeah.
It was just Major Pain was trying to distract him from the gunshot by breaking his finger or whatever the injury was. It was hilarious though. So you should revisit it.
I should.
It's
been a while.
Silly. It's silly, but it still holds up in terms of just being a silly movie. Yeah.
Well, that was a little over an hour.
Yep.
Let's see.
We
have lots of comments through here that we weren't able to get to because we were answering.
Do you want to choose like 2 or something real quick?
Just comments? Let's see.
Just choose them. Just like scroll and then just tap the screen.
Just tap the screen.
Or stop it. I don't know.
Let's see.
I don't have it pulled up, so I can't.
There's not a ton of questions, actually. There's mostly just discussion.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's what we want. We want to promote discussion. So.
What do you have to do with the bodies when you receive them?
What do we have to do when we receive the bodies to prepare them? That's a question you saw. Jen let us know about a question. What do we have to do? Mostly, we have to bag them, as you guys can see here. I went the wrong way. I looked at the screen rather than the body. They've already been embalmed. We spray them with our own preservative. We make sure that we get as much air out of the bags. And whenever we open them up, we continue to spray them because air is kind of the enemy, and then we wrap them up again. That's generally what we do. They get worn out, at least they should, by handling, like students using them and moving. And that's what we want. Like over time, they're going to wear out from students like picking up a biceps. And I say that's why they should be, meaning like if for some reason somebody made a mistake and left a bag open, that would be a big problem for it.
Yeah.
Oh, come back. And it's happened before. We come in, it's like, oh, somebody left this bag open. What are we going to find in here? And luckily we haven't had anything get completely ruined. We've been able to salvage anything that was made a mistake. And I don't think it's ever really been you and I. I think it's always been like a class that comes in and forgets to wrap the bag. So
yeah. Anything else, or is that good? Good.
We got it.
I think we're good.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for chilling with us for an hour. We're gonna get more refined at these rather than me clicking these buttons and forgetting to do them on the right camera angles and stuff like that. So we appreciate.
If you know any good producers,
yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea how to hire a producer. How do you even figure that out? That's another conversation for another day.
Say we're looking for a producer, and
I know, but how do you determine what's a good producer? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's my question.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. I should end the stream. Bye, guys.
Bye. That was a good end. That was a good outro.